Welcome, everyone, to episode 131 of Just Joshing. I am your host, Joshua Penteleresco. I write stuff and podcast too. Today is kind of another interesting one. I was a guest on the Choose Happy podcast, and we had a great conversation about the nature of happiness, and we just talked about all kinds of random stuff. And now they did a 20-minute section of the interview we recorded. Today, the full interview will be here. I had a blast doing it. I hope I get to actually go back on that show sometime next year when this tea stuff's all done, and I can talk to them about what I've learned about transformation, because I think this is I thought it was a really cool thing. But I think more importantly than my show is the show after where they did the happiness homework, and to my shock, to my chagrin, they took it in a very didn't design it for happiness. So I'm going to talk about the happiness homework here, just so I understand the idea of it. So the happiness homework I gave them was about answering 5 questions. The 5 questions were: who are you? What do you want? Why are you here? What do you live for? Where are you going? And are you happy? None of these questions are easy. None of them. Who are you might be the hardest question you'll ever ask yourself. And because there's so many layers to it. There's your job, there's who you are to your spouses, it's how you see yourself. And if you don't see yourself, that tells you something. What do you want? Well, what do you want? It can be anything, really. What comes to mind when you ask that question? Why are you here? What do you live for? That can be done a multitude of different ways. Like, what do you believe in? That's a big part of why are you here? Why are we here? Did a supreme creator create us? Was it God? Was it the universe? Was it evolution? That's part of that question. But another part of that question is, like, what do you feel called to do? Because it's not always the same thing about what you want, just where you're skilled at, and what. And there are again, my interpretation isn't the only one either, guys, on any of this. But these are the ways I approach these questions. Where are you going? Where do you see yourself ending up? Where do you want to end up? What is your light at the end of the tunnel? Whatever that is. Are you happy? That might seem like the simplest question, but that's a complicated one. I have talked to people who I can literally look into their eyes and their face, and I can tell they're miserable. But they don't know why. Intellectually speaking, they're like, I'm happy. I really, really am. And the truth of the matter is, nothing's further from the truth. It really depends on the individual. It really, really does. But anyway, that was the idea behind the homework. You should listen to those shows after this one. Just saying. All right, let's get to that conversation. Now, so we are flipping the script now.
We are.
Yes. So initially ladies and gentlemen, we were going to do my podcast first, but I think just the way a conversation went, I think I recorded their material first. But it's okay. It's okay. So introduce yourselves again.
Sure. I'm Kate, the Eternal Optimist.
I'm Sarah, the Cynical Realist.
Apparently.
I don't buy that.
Josh doesn't see it. Yeah. We host a show called Choose Happy Podcast, where we talk about, investigate, and sometimes even experiment with what makes us happy. If you've listened to us before, you know that I stole that right from our tagline.
Yes, but there's nothing wrong with that. So I said this previously, like, for me, happiness is like the 5th most important question. So, but where does your fascination with happiness come from?
You start, Sarah.
I don't have a fascination with it. It was your idea, and you asked me to be a part of it, and I said, "Do you want me to be a part of this?" And you said yes. So you explain how you came up with this idea.
Okay, first, do you want me to explain why I asked you to be part of it, aside from the fact that I love you and I love collaborating with you?
Yes.
Okay, because you speak so frequently about happiness and how you want to be happier and how you are working on happiness, and everything that you do in your life is an attempt to become more happy. And you work in a system that is designed for you to be terribly unhappy a lot of the time. You are a fascinating subject.
Okay. So I'm the experiment. I am the experiment.
You are the experiment.
Okay.
Maybe that's what we'll put in our new tagline.
Okay, so where did the idea come from?
Oh. No, it's okay.
No,
this is fine. The more if I take over, it means you're shy, and I don't have to worry about that with you two. It's great. Yeah.
Not with me. I think the idea came about with trauma in my life and traumatic experiences, and looking back and reflecting on the choices that I made in the midst of those, and thinking, wow, I could have turned out way differently. How is it that given the resume or the CV of stuff that's happened in my life, am I okay? And a lot of it came down to choices and to choosing to be happy in the moment. And I mean, as we've talked about, Josh, being in this moment, knowing that it's going to change. And so being grateful for right now.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing. And then noticing as I continued to work with people and moved further in my career that there are a lot of people in the world who are chronically unhappy.
Absolutely.
And I think part of why I'm here is not to spread some great gospel of happiness, but maybe to just incite thought in people, incite a little bit of reflection. If one person listens to our show and reflects a little bit on their own practice, and if their lives are a little bit better because of that, then I've achieved something. Mm-hmm. It's like the most optimistic way to put that. Sarah was shaking her head at me.
Very optimistic.
Yeah.
So see, with you, I don't fully buy the cynical thing.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure you got this big giant pot of miserableism in you, and that's fine. I have met miserableism type people before that can be very hilarious. The humor is very dark, at least. So, you're right. But she's there's like a chuckle there. So maybe I hit a point, or I very understated it, one or the other. But no, I said this, Sarah. I think for you, I think there, if nothing else, if you're supporting your friend, which is a lot actually positive about you. Mm-hmm. She's nodding.
I am positive. I try to be, but I just don't take things at face value. I question everything.
But that's
you're a questioner for sure.
But skepticism doesn't necessarily mean that you're cynical.
That's true. That's
right?
True. Maybe it should be skeptical. I'm
skeptical realist instead of cynical.
Maybe.
Well, I always tend to think like like cynicism to me is the worst human emotion. And the reason I think it's the worst human emotion is because it's the one that closes you off. Like there's a point where skepticism's good, doubt is good, right? But in skepticism and in doubt, there's still that possibility of whatever you're being skeptical about being true. It's a natural thing. Okay, is this right? Is this thing? Whereas if you're cynical, you're like, nah, I don't think so. Right? And to me, cynicism to me is the shutting of doors. And I have seen so many people lose opportunities because of their cynicism.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
I just know that Sarah has a tendency to shut down whatever I bring to her immediately. I feel like the baseline that you project to the world, Sarah, is cynical, but you're really trying hard to not be.
I think that's right. Okay, so I've just Googled the definition because I think, okay, I'm probably equating cynicism with skepticism. But it did, I've lost it, but it did say the general belief that people are just out for themselves. And I think I believe that. I hate people.
There's nothing there, but I can kind of understand that. And this is funny because I talk to really amazing people, but there are a lot of people I don't have the patience for personally. I just don't. Yeah. So for me, I have 3 rules to life: show up, do thy shit, right, and the rest is rain. Okay. And if you don't show up and you don't do what you're supposed to do, mm-hmm. you're essentially rain. You know the thing about rain? You can't control it, and it's random. Mm. And if you're going to be uncontrollable and random, I mean, as a person, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, that's kind of, and when I'm around that to any degree, I'm getting too old for that kind of stuff. I'm just like, you know what? You go do your thing. Leave me alone.
Yep, I get that.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
I mean, uncontrollable and random is how I dance, but that's not anything anybody ever needs to see. So
Now I want to see it.
No.
So what's her drink of choice? So what,
Is that where we're going?
One.
I see we're very serious on my podcast today.
Very serious.
Very serious. But
I love it.
yeah. So let me ask this. How do you equate joy to happiness?
For me, happiness is, and I'll get to your question.
Yeah.
But I'll start by defining happiness. For me, happiness is sort of your baseline outlook.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to look at my baseline outlook on life, I assume the best in people, which is opposite of the cynic.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that people are doing their best with what they have. I assume that I will be able to do my best with what I have. And that lends me a really profound sense of contentment a lot of the time. And I mean, there's a lot of arguments that we have with people about contentment versus happiness versus joy. And people tend to put that on a scale. And I think my baseline that I define as happiness right here, people will look at as contentment. But I think that's sort of the midpoint on the bar graph. And then the further up you go into that state or into that emotion, you can get to joy.
Okay.
I find that accessing joy is easy because I practice happiness, if that makes sense. But maybe joy is more of a practice skill. I don't know. Now I'm rambling. I haven't really thought about that.
No, it's okay.
I think joy is ephemeral, and if you equate that with happiness, you'll spend your life in misery, because you cannot, I don't think that you can have joy all the time. Like that's momentary. Maybe for a day, if you're like at Disneyland or something. Oh no, that would be horrible.
That would be horrible.
But
It's
do you know
a
what I
small
mean?
world after all. But no.
Yeah.
I actually tend to agree with you. I think joy, there are moments in your life like you are truly grateful to be alive, and those moments, I don't know any other word but joy. But when I write, joy is the hardest thing for me to write, right? Because it's pure. It's so pure that everybody understands pain. So pain is actually the easiest thing to write.
Yes, yes.
Comedy is harder than pain.
Yes.
Because comedy is so partly because it's so subjective, but also because are you being funny or are you just being a turd? I mean, that's and there's a real line with that. Like, writing funny is not easy.
Yes.
But joy is even harder than humor, because everybody understands joy. But getting to that moment just right is so hard to do. It's funny. Negativity is easy, but positivity, although it's a simple concept, is so hard. It really, I mean, in terms of writing, it is super, super hard.
In terms of acting it too.
Yeah.
Like in what I've done in acting, it's very easy to channel misery or to channel disappointment or to channel frustration. To channel joy takes practice. It's difficult because we experience it so fleetingly. But I really do believe that we can engineer our lives and engineer our choices and our outlook so that we can access that more often if that's what we really want. She's glaring at me.
I'm not glaring. You make it sound easy.
Okay, so there's a real. I've been hearing that. I hear this a lot. There's a difference. She makes it sound simple.
Yeah.
She's not actually making it sound easy. A lot of people get the two confused.
Okay.
Simplicity is like how she put it, like engineering joy. Oh, it's so wonderful and neat. No, she's not saying that at all. What she's saying is, right? What she's saying is, you can engineer your life to get joy. What she's not talking about is the journey itself to get to that point.
Oh, and that's exactly it. It's a fucking slog. It's horrible sometimes. It's difficult. You give up a lot of things to focus on joy and happiness. You're giving up a lot of what might be really fulfilling to you in the moment to invest in your long-term state of mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy.
Okay.
Well, you're in the middle of it right now. It's not easy.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Can be simple though.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah. No. So, one of my favorite games of all time is Tetris.
Yes.
Tetris is
Really?
awesome. Yeah, I love Tetris.
Okay.
I like Tetris too.
I don't. So Lego is officially my coolest toy in the universe
Sure.
because it's Lego and it's awesome. Number 2 is Minecraft. Number 3 is the Slinky. I think I've amused my guest, but I mean, but we'll get to this, right? But the thing is, if you look at that and you look at like Tetris is a simple game. It's algorithms. It's lines, squares, stuff. It's a simple game. Have you played Tetris at level 25?
Yes, that's not easy.
No, it's not easy at all. Once upon a time, my dad got to level 99 at Tetris.
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. My best I've ever done is 39. So, I mean, it's the best I've ever done. I'm not that good anymore. I'm okay, but I'm good. I'm not that good anymore. But such a simple little game. Mm-hmm. And yet, it is very fulfilling. Whoever thought of that game was a genius. Right? No, because again, simplicity at its core, is very profound. It's very obvious, and everybody assumes it's easy. 1 and 2, but almost everybody misses it. It's actually probably one of the biggest. I would argue that simplicity is probably one of the biggest foundations of happiness.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So how does that work for you? What is the simplicity that leads to your happiness?
Show up, do the shit, mess is rain.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like a simple, not an easy, but a simple outlook.
Yeah. No, you can't. And I'm just bringing this up because a lot of people assume like, oh, I'm gonna be happy and wonderful and joyous because no, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. Easy is. There is nothing easy about doing anything in this life that's worth doing. Nothing. Right? Yeah. You got to pay prices. You have to be willing to, in some cases, starve, in some cases, bleed, some cases, like there are tears.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. I know you do. But once you realize like what really matters to you, and that comes like going through some really hard like life events, sometimes making difficult decisions. What's important to you? The rest will figure itself out, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But that's it. Like simplicity is okay. I want to be a writer. I want to make that my living. I want to be a podcaster. I want to have a studio, and I'm going to invite people over and drink my beer and shoot the shit.
Sure.
Yeah. That like these are simple things. What do I have to do to get there? Fix my teeth, right? That's next. Keep publishing books. Get my name out there as much as I can. Probably put in some really, really long days on my day job, which I tolerate. That's the word I'll use. Tolerate. And right. But I have all this in here. I don't worry about what I have to do to get there. I'm already there. Mm-hmm. And the rest is just simply me walking that walk to get to where I want to go.
So what would you say to people who struggle to start walking that walk consistently?
Look at what you want to be.
Don't worry. Don't motivate people.
A wise man once said to me, you have really 2 choices.
Right.
Choice number 1 is you can look at the shit you have to walk through. That's choice 1. And if anyone looks at the shit they have to walk through, no one's going to go anywhere.
Well, exactly.
Right? I mean, at the very least, not without an extra pair of shoes. And number 2, or you can focus on where you want to go. And that's having a clear definition of what that is.
Yeah.
You have
I
to.
like that.
Yeah. It's you have to have a clear. You have to have a vision of what you want. Like whatever that vision is. It can be big. It can be small. It can be but it's about like for you, whatever that is. You stay on that in your head. No matter what you face that day, that month, that year, it doesn't matter. Everything passes. If you can endure, if you can walk through the walk, eventually the world will transform into what you want it to. Mm-hmm. Which is ultimately why I said on the previous podcast, we all eventually get what we want.
Yes.
Whether we realize it or not, we do make those choices by what we do and what we don't do. Right? And that is the key. Do you look at the shit or do you look at what you want?
Okay. I'm going to use your own metaphor against you here.
So, put the boxing gloves on.
So I like this Tetris metaphor.
Yeah.
But if you are, like, when you get to the higher levels and it's going quickly and you're like, I need a T, I need a T, I need a T, but then the boxes and the L's are falling down around you, you lose because you're just concentrated on that one thing.
Okay, so let's try this. I can Tetris my way even now. Even now, the first like 10, 12 levels, I build my blocks perfectly and I Tetris over and over again. And then I get to about 13, it starts to get really fast. And then at that point, I'm going to make mistakes. At that point, I'm going to stumble. And sometimes I lose that game. But you know what the beautiful thing is?
You have to start over.
You can start over. And
okay.
It's one thing to lose that particular game. It's another thing to put the controller down forever.
Okay.
Yeah?
Schooled. Yeah. No, because I was comparing that to like my real life, and like probably my biggest goal is to be a calm, non-reactive, loving parent. And I try to do that, like that's my focus, but then I get really busy at work and I have all this marking to do at home and she's bothering me and all these blocks are falling down around and I'm trying to focus on this one thing that I want my life to be.
When we get off the air,
yeah,
I'm gonna recommend a couple things just for you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, when we get off the air.
But that's what I'm thinking. Like all of these things, these external demands that I can't control, that I need to do my shit, right?
Oh yeah, but doing your shit. So I'm gonna ask you a hard question.
Okay.
Are anything you're dealing with a distraction? And this is a legitimate question because sometimes now as I've gotten older, I have realized that there are some things in my life I don't need.
Yes.
I don't need I'm single, so this is the best thing is I don't need very much. I need food and I need a roof over my head and I need occasionally, new socks and underwear. And I'm good. Right? I made Kate just look down and smile.
Just like, I love that.
Yeah.
You need new underwear?
No, just the simplicity of that.
Oh, okay.
The simplicity of knowing what you need and really distilling it down to the essentials.
Yeah. That's just it. Like in your case, if your kid matters, obviously you need to pay bills. There's no that you can't avoid.
Yep.
But how about your car? How about your modes of transportation, the food you eat, the lifestyle you're living? The other thing so I mentioned this. I've mentioned this on a few of my previous episodes. I've made the decision to start taking care of my teeth. That was a hard decision for me because for me, most people will look at my teeth and say, what the hell happened? For me, it's a battle scar. It's something where I learned a really very important lesson in my life. So at first, I didn't want to change it because I felt I needed that reminder. Later, and if I'm really truly honest with myself, there was definitely some neglect there as well. I'm not with what happened, but later.
Yeah.
Part of what happened for me was I got distracted. As a creative type, you tend to work on things and you forget about yourself sometimes. It's just, you don't again, this is a really hard thing for people who aren't creative to really understand this. Yeah. You don't mean to do that. It just, you get caught up in this world or this world or this world and this, and then before you know it, time has gone by. You've released these books and they're cool, and you've got this podcast going somehow by accident, and but that time is gone, and you don't fully, like, again, you just get caught. You get caught. For me to get to the next step for my career, for my health, I have to make changes, and not just with my teeth, but with how I take care of myself.
Right.
And again, that's just me growing up a little bit more, right? and that's kind of where, and that's in your case. I'm not saying everything is, because I know, again, I don't know your life, I don't know what you need, but I'm willing to make a bet with you that if you really looked at what is in your life right now, there are some things you don't need, and you can probably give those up. Now, whether
I mean, okay, but you're talking to a teacher where that's your whole life. You don't need the extracurriculars. You don't need the, like. Do you mean things or?
I know things.
Things that she doesn't need.
Yeah, there's things she doesn't need. Everything you bring. I'm not talking about your job, because again, being a teacher, I mean, that's a full time. Like, it's very similar to being a writer in the sense that it's a very, you're full time.
100%.
Yeah, 100%. You're. How many students do you teach?
About 100.
100 students.
Mm-hmm.
That means you, in some way, in some of these students' lives, you are a bigger part of sometimes their own families. And some students are just assholes, which I mean, that's just part of the deal, right? And then you have an even keel somewhere in the middle, but there's still 100 people. You got papers to mark, things to you have obligations. And if you're a good teacher and you really give a damn,
mm-hmm.
right, you're going to put in the extra time. And that's that you can't change. And not if you want to do your job the way you want it to do it.
Yes.
But so when I was in Arizona and when I was going through a really hard time, I had all these things. Like, again, a lot of junk I didn't need. I had to leave. There was nothing left for me there to learn. But I had all this stuff I couldn't carry with me. And I just made the decision to let it go.
So you mean like physical things
rather
than like mental load, mental obligation, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Just even physical things. Like, there's not a lot necessarily that you need. Now, again, even some mental things. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there are a few things in there that are probably,
not serving you.
Yeah.
Everybody has those.
Yeah. And you need to know what they are. But physically speaking, that stuff's a distraction too sometimes. Do you really need certain things? You probably, again, looking in the mirror, you probably could say, I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this, I don't need this, right? And you'd be surprised at moment, because you get rid of those things. It's honestly almost like a weight's being lifted. You don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And that might, again, I don't know your full situation, but that sounds like, again, if you're getting to the point where you're being bombarded, you have too much of a load somewhere in your life, and you need to really analyze what that is.
It's the job. It's definitely the job.
But I think Josh's argument is really powerful, though, because by going through and the act of physically purging what you don't need in terms of physical things.
So you're talking like minimalism.
Yeah, which is something that you and I are going to talk about in a couple of months here. But like the act of doing that, I think, would allow you to lighten the load elsewhere, maybe looking at your home or your classroom or your car or wherever you're hoarding stuff, because everybody has a hoarding, you're not a hoarder, Sarah, but wherever you're hoarding stuff will let you decrease that load, that mental load, giving you more capacity to deal with the load of being a parent, being a wife, being a teacher. Is that sort of what you mean?
Yeah. I mean, what's important to you? I mean, that's actually, and the thing is, if you make that your priority, what do you need for those priorities? Being the best mom, probably sounds like you possibly can be sounds like number 1. Being a best teacher you can be sounds like number 2. I could be wrong, but that's what it sounds like. So if that's the case, what do you need for those? What don't you need, right? And everybody needs to go through. I had a buddy, he was going through what I went through in Arizona here. And he was he did it very differently than I did. I didn't really complain too much. I was angry, but I didn't complain a lot. I just tried to get through it. And he was just having these meltdowns on like a daily basis. I finally went to him. It's like, look, man, like you got all this, like, he's like, I got so many days before I'm thrown out. So it's like, dude, so sell your stuff. Just get rid of what you can and go. And he wouldn't do that. I came to the conclusion with him, and this goes back, like, he was just trying to, at this point in his life, I could not help him. He's right. And once I realized, I was like, he needs to figure this out on his own, because I've tried, and I don't know what else I can do, sort of carrying his load for him, but I'm not going to do that. Yeah. So.
Yep.
But anyways,
I think that our counseling session is up, guys.
I do. So let's talk to another part of happiness that isn't talked about as much. Peace. With it, that
can you define that a little bit?
Like
a little bit more.
World peace or personal peace?
Personal peace. Okay. Because I going back to something you said about contentment. Yeah. Contentment is not necessarily. I think the difference between contentment and happiness is peace. Contentment is contentment. You might be okay in that moment, but you're not satisfied. And while I can't say you're fully satisfied and happy, you should want some. It's human nature to want a little more. But you're at peace with yourself. So you can accept every part, or if not, you're actively trying to change those parts you're not liking, and that's a big part of just being at peace with who you are.
Yeah, I think that's something that we're working on right now. We're experimenting with meditation and mindfulness right now, and I think that goes a long way to helping a person achieve peace. Like I listened to, maybe it was Invisibilia. It was one of those kinds of podcasts where they were discussing the idea that your thoughts don't matter that much. Yeah. Like we place too much emphasis and too much stock in what we're thinking. And if you can sort of let those things go, like it's about being versus doing, right? I think finding peace. And I don't know, I think it's possible. I don't want to give away our experiment.
No.
No. But it'll probably come out. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. I feel like it would be an asshole-ish thing to claim that most of the time I'm at peace with myself, but I'm going to be the asshole and say most of the time I am.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I don't know. Like, it just.
Okay, so why? Why then?
Why what?
Well, it's okay. There are people completely comfortable in their skin. Yeah. They're not common these days, but you're a well-adjusted person. It doesn't make you an asshole.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. That's, I needed to hear that. Thank you. No,
yeah.
I mean, you're right when you stated that people are sort of always wanting a little bit more because, you get to peace with yourself and then your circumstances change or you change or your body changes and you need to do a little bit more work on that. But I think you can be at peace with yourself and still work on yourself at the same time. And you can be at peace with the fact that you're a work in process. And I love that. I love that I can be a work in process and be very open about that and experiment with all these different things and that I can be completely happy doing it. I'm not doing meditation exercises out of guilt that I should or that I want to be a better person. I'm enough and I'm okay with that. Sometimes I feel guilty.
But you shouldn't feel guilty for that. Well, I mean, why would you? Look, I mean, whatever you've been through in life, you found whatever answers you've needed to find for now.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? So now 5-6 years from now,
that might look completely different.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. But right this moment, you're good.
Yeah.
congratulations. I mean, and I don't. I think it's just. I guess my advice, for you, would be just simply this: it's okay to be okay.
Yeah.
Right? It really is. You don't need the magical. You don't need that magical moment of I need to be healed. No, not everybody needs to be healed at that moment in that time.
Yeah.
You're good, and that might mean that And I just had a really really interesting thought about this. But anyways, that just might be you're at this point in your life, you're ready to help other people. Awesome.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think when you mentioned it, I started thinking about why I carry that guilt around being happy and being at peace with myself. And I think it really relates to what we were talking about earlier about money and branding. Because in our society, we glamorize self-care. We glamorize needing to be healed. We glamorize the health industry as a pursuit, not as a state.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't glamorize people who are happy. We glamorize
Absolutely.
people who are fighting against unhappiness or terrible circumstances. And to just be okay, we don't see a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. So now I need to start taking your wisdom and start thinking about how can I best use this to help others.
So, and I'm going to give you one small little bit of caution too.
Sure.
Guilt and sorrow
Yeah.
are useful for only one circumstance each. When you've done something wrong.
Yeah.
And when you need to apologize for it. And so guilt and shame
Sure. Yeah.
are good. In every other circumstance, they're chains. Be very careful.
Sure. I don't know. I think guilt is healthy. But okay, so let me back up. I don't know if you've read any of Brené Brown's work.
No.
Nonfiction author. She's a shame researcher and looks into shame and the functionality of guilt and shame. And she basically says the same thing about shame. There is no functionality to that. It holds you down. It's a chain. It is a very unhealthy state to be in. But guilt will allow you to make changes when you need to.
No, and that's when guilt's useful.
Exactly.
Right? That's when guilt's useful. Like
Exactly.
it comes back to that moment of I've done wrong.
Yeah.
And what can I learn? Like that's where guilt's good. That's where guilt's really good. Shame, but the thing is, even guilt. Look, so I'm going to say something that's going to be kind of. So if you're Catholic, I'm sorry. This is just kind of how I feel. The church, like the Catholic Church,
Yeah.
has made a fortune off people's guilt.
Yes.
And that's why I say I caution you. Guilt is a very healthy thing when used properly, but it's also guilt and fear and shame are the three biggest chains people have.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. So because it's good to be guilty, but make sure you actually are doing something wrong.
Well, and I appreciate this because a lot of times it feels like stating that you're okay is doing something wrong.
No.
And this is a really good thing to look at. I think I'm done saying that. Yeah, that's not serving me. I'm done with that. Thank you. Also, is this how it happens on your show? Did people just come on and just be therapied by you?
No.
Is this what you do? This
No.
is amazing.
No, no. Okay, so I'm again. My dad does alternative medicine. He heals people that way, and I do know a lot about that, which is why after the show we're talking.
Mm-hmm.
But I talk to people all the time.
Yeah.
So I get a pretty good reading on people, usually pretty quickly when I really get to talk to them. And so I'm not always right, but I usually hit some points here and there.
Yeah.
And in your case, you're like, I'm well adjusted. Something must be wrong. No.
I think I just came from such non-well-adjusted stock that this is just weird for me still sometimes.
No, just and going back to just why I asked about peace. You're at peace with yourself.
Exactly.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
All right. Again, a few years from now, you'll change because life is change.
Exactly.
But I mean, again, a few years ago, I wouldn't have worried about fixing this. Now I'm ready to fix this, right? That's a different. You got to get there, right? Everybody's got to get there in their own way.
Exactly.
So we got it. So my last question for this.
Sure.
What's your goal? Both of you.
To retire. I'm not kidding, and that's probably what makes me so unhappy.
Okay, but wait. If we rewind 5 minutes.
Okay.
You said your greatest goal.
Yes.
Is a phrase you used. Your greatest goal is to be a patient, non-reactive, loving parent.
Yes.
Calm, non-reactive, loving parent.
Yeah.
So which one is it? Or is it like if you retire, you will have more of a capacity to be that parent?
Well, you have to be careful in saying that because there's always that if I can get this, then I can do that. You have to be careful there. But yes, you're right. That is my goal right now. And it's hard. But nothing's easy, right? Like
nothing worthwhile ever is.
Exactly.
Nothing worthwhile ever is.
Exactly. And Caitlin's worth it.
And the like being less reactive. I can do it like at work, but it's hard at home. So that's my goal. I don't know. Don't stop counseling me. I'm working on it.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
I don't know. That's my goal. Less reaction, more patience. That's my goal. What's your goal? Miss Perfect? That's why she feels guilty.
This is why I have a shame complex. It's because of her. I don't know. I'm really happy right now. Let's just keep being in the
okay.
So happy right now.
Let me rephrase this.
Sure.
For the purposes of your podcast.
Sure.
What's your goal?
What's the goal of the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
For you.
Well, I mean, I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. The goal of the show is to help provide people with resources if they need it, or just a little bit of food for thought in terms of their own happiness practices. Eventually, I would love to have a community of people who are, kind of like-minded, kind of talking about the same things on social media, but there's a voice inside me that says, no, not really, because I hate social media. So I think somewhere in there with the show. It's a baby still, the show.
I absolutely. I've listened to a few. Like I listened to a few to prepare for this because I wasn't sure what our interview was like when you interviewed me. Is. So I was like, so I guess the question is, do you see it going forever, or do you have like a finite amount of episodes you want to do, or are you just kind of taking it as it goes right now?
This is embarrassing because we didn't actually talk about that. I just sort of think we're going to see where it goes. And if there's a market for it, then this is something that we can really build. And if there isn't a market for it, then there will probably be a point where we go, well, time to move on. Let's run our podcast about cheeses of the world or whatever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That sounds fun.
That sounds really fun. Today,
I wouldn't
Gouda.
listen to that.
Yeah. Today we're doing Gouda because it's amazing. And then tomorrow, why is Monterey called Jack? This is how serious I am in real life.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I had a feeling.
Yeah. So, but anyways, I think to wrap this up. So, how can people find you guys?
Yes, at Choose Happy Podcast at Choose Happy Pod on Facebook and on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And they can find us on any podcast host by just searching Choose Happy Podcast.
ChooseHappyPodcast.com.
That too.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's my part of the interview, guys.
Perfect. Hold on, I'm just gonna.
And that will do it for this episode of Just Joshing. If you want to support the podcast, you can. You can do this a number of different ways. You can subscribe to the podcast either through iTunes or through Podomatic. If you do so, please leave a review. Tell me what you liked about the show, what you hate about the show. Just don't hate too loud, okay, guys? Because I'm sensitive and stuff. Actually, it really doesn't matter to me. Just leave a comment. Let me know what's going on. If you like what you're hearing, that'd be great. Beyond that, you could also buy my books. At this point, The Watcher, Storm Dancer, and The Wandering God are done. The series is complete. You can get them on Amazon. You can get them at mirrorworldpublishing.com. You can get them anywhere books are sold electronically. You can also ask your local chapters, Barnes & Noble or Amazon, to get them in stock. I would love if you did. If you hate the book, just don't tell anybody, okay? Okay. Beyond that, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel is Joshua Pantelleresco. Currently, past archived episodes of the podcast are there. More and more episodes are going there as we speak. Definitely should check that out and do what needs to be done. Above all else, though, whether you support me or you don't, thank you for listening. You should stay inspired. Do what you feel called to do. Don't be afraid to make the sacrifices required to find the success you're looking for. Because the real secret is, what are you willing to give up to go forward? That, more than anything else, I think determines how far you go. All right, guys, you take care of yourselves. All right, see you next time.
Josh.